For our 7th wedding anniversary, my husband offered to take me camping out in the wilderness. But when I jolted awake in the middle of the night to a torrential downpour, he was nowhere to be found. Terrified something had happened to him, I stumbled and crawled through the dark for 4 straight hours. My only thought was to get help as fast as I could. But when I finally stumbled out of the mountains, covered in cuts and bruises, I saw an Instagram post from his young assistant. "You'll always be my rock," it read. The photo showed my husband fixing a leaky pipe for her. I liked the post without a word, and she deleted it instantly. My husband called, furious. "I was just fixing a pipe for Sophie. Do you have to make a mountain out of a molehill? And Sophie's staying at our place for a couple days. Don't come home yet." Once, I would have snapped and screamed like a shrew, falling apart at the seams. But this time? I was just tired. When the police cruiser dropped me off at home, I could hear giggling and playful shouting coming from inside. I typed in the passcode and pushed the door open. Inside, Ethan Carter stood behind Sophie Reed, deftly slipping a pink hair tie off his wrist to pull her hair back into a ponytail. I limped into the living room. Ethan froze for a split second when he saw how ragged I looked. "What happened to you? You look like a ghost." Then his gaze dropped to my feet, and he frowned in disgust. "You got the floor all dirty. You're mopping it later." I ignored his complaint, my gaze drifting calmly between the two of them. "Why do I look like a ghost?" "Because there's no cell service out in those mountains." I stumbled through the dark in the rain, tripped and fell dozens of times, and walked for 4 hours just to reach the road and call for help. But of course none of that matters as much as you fixing her pipe, or a dirty floor. Sophie's smile faltered. Maybe I should head home after all. She grabbed her bag and made a slow show of heading for the door, her eyes never leaving Ethan. For once, Ethan didn't snap at me for being mean to her. He just gave a quiet nod and said, "Get home safe." Sophie bit her lip and reluctantly stepped outside. When the door clicked shut, he strode over to me, a half-smirk on his face. "I was gonna call you to come back, but every time I so much as mention Sophie you lose your mind. I didn't want to set you off again." He was right. Once, just seeing him touch her hair would have sent me over the edge. Hell, just hearing him say her name would have put me on edge. But now? I couldn't be bothered to waste another feeling on it. I gave a quiet hum, stepped around him, and headed straight for the bedroom. My wet clothes clung to my skin, and the dozens of scrapes and cuts from falls and thorny branches ached all over my body. A hot shower finally made me feel human again. I grabbed the hairdryer and was about to turn it on when Ethan's tall frame filled the doorway. He took the dryer from my hand and started running his fingers through my hair, slow and deliberate. I knew what this was. His way of calling a truce. Before I could refuse, he pushed me down onto a stool. "Don't be stubborn. Going to bed with wet hair gives you headaches." I didn't have the energy to fight him, so I gave in. Barely a minute later, his hand fell away from my shoulder. The air suddenly turned scalding hot, and the nozzle burned my scalp. I jolted straight off the stool. His phone clattered to the floor. The screen lit up with a new photo from Sophie, a selfie in a skimpy bunny girl pajama set. "Like it? Wanna see more?" The angle was suggestive, showing off plenty of skin. "Claire. You did that on purpose." Ethan snatched up the phone and locked the screen, that familiar I knew it anger on his face. "How many times do I have to say it? Sophie and I are just boss and assistant. She's a young woman, it's not safe for her to get home this late. What's wrong with me checking in on her? You're being completely unreasonable right now." So he really thought I'd knocked his phone out of his hand out of jealousy? "You're right. You're never wrong." I unplugged the dryer and turned to head back to the bedroom. But he grabbed my wrist. "So I left you out in the woods. Big deal. You're fine, aren't you? How long are you gonna keep acting out over this?" Right. I'm fine. I just almost died out there, that's all. I'm not acting out. If you're that unhappy, we can get a divorce. I wrenched my wrist free and walked back to the bedroom without looking back. He'd always been the one to throw divorce around before. I'd been the one begging him not to. I expected Ethan to blow up. Instead, I was jolted out of a deep sleep when someone pulled me into their arms. My whole body ached, my head was spinning, and I tried to push him away, but he pinned my wrists down. What, you're this mad 'cause we didn't have sex? You're really gonna throw divorce in my face over that? He didn't notice how sick I felt. He said it like he'd won some kind of argument. Then he pressed his mouth to mine, rough and clumsy. I bit him hard. Claire, what the hell is your problem? Look at you, you're ugly, you've let yourself go. Who else is gonna put up with you besides me? His pride stung, he kept spitting insults under his breath. But my head was getting foggier by the second. When I woke up, the sharp smell of antiseptic burned my nose. Un-4 was taped to the back of my hand. I'd been out in the rain for hours, and all my scrapes had gotten infected. My fever had spiked to 103.1 degrees Fahrenheit. Ethan sat beside me, a faint smile on his face as he typed away on his phone. How you feeling? He looked up when he noticed I was awake and leaned in. Before I could answer, he scoffed. People run marathons and don't act this high maintenance. You totally killed the mood. Once, a comment like that would have made me cry. Now I just pressed my lips together and said nothing. His phone screen lit up again. I caught a glimpse out of the corner of my eye. It was a text from Sophie, saved under baby Sophie. He read it, a small smirk tugging at his mouth, then turned back to me half-heartedly. Something came up at work last minute. I gotta run. The nurse said the 4'll take 2 hours. Just go back to sleep, I'll be back soon. With that, he practically ran out the door. My lips were cracked and dry from the fever. I wanted a sip of water, but I didn't have the strength to sit up. I sighed, my throat burning with thirst, and drifted back into an exhausted sleep. The next time I woke up, it was to a nurse's gasp of alarm. The back of my hand was swollen like a balloon, and blood had backed halfway up the 4 line. She pulled the needle out while muttering about how irresponsible my husband was. At the mention of him, I pulled up Sophie's Instagram. Her latest post showed fresh, dark hickeys blooming on her neck. Her hand was laced with a man's, and they wore matching diamond rings. I smiled at the nurse's endless complaints. He's probably busy in some other woman's bed. The nurse froze, gave me a pitying look, and went quiet. My fever broke the next morning. I had a lot of cuts and scrapes, but they were all superficial. Nothing serious. I checked myself out of the hospital right away. I was at the checkout desk when Ethan called. Claire, where the hell are you? Why didn't you make breakfast and coffee for Sophie and me? I'm at the hospital. I answered calmly, then held out my phone to pay with Apple Pay. It must have finally clicked that he'd left me alone there all night. His voice went stiff. Fine. I'll have someone else get it. I spent the whole day at home reading up on divorce procedures. Everywhere I looked, people said to gather as much evidence as you can. I saved every one of Sophie's posts right away. When Ethan got home that night, I was browsing law firms, looking for the best divorce attorney in town. He walked in, saw the empty dining table, and frowned immediately. Why isn't dinner ready? Didn't feel like it. I answered without looking up from my phone. He blinked, surprised. For once, he didn't launch into his usual rant about how lazy and ugly I was, how he'd drawn the short straw marrying me. He sat down next to me and pulled out a gift box like he was doing me a favor. Anniversary present. Inside was a diamond ring. I remembered seeing Sophie post a matching pair of rings a few days ago, complaining that the store was cheap, they'd only given her this tiny free gift when she'd spent over $1 million. If I wasn't mistaken, this was that exact free gift. When I ignored him, he grabbed my hand roughly and tried to shove it on. I told you to eat less. Look at you, you've gotten so fat the ring won't even fit. He pulled a tube of hand cream out of his pocket. It had a cute sticker on it that said, Sophie's. He noticed me staring and a flicker of panic crossed his face. My hands were dry last week. I borrowed it from her. He tried to rub some on my finger to force the ring on. I pulled my hand away in disgust. I stared at the ring, clearly a full size too small, and smiled. Maybe it's just the wrong size. I went back to scrolling on my phone. James Hale. Divorce attorney. 98% win rate. I saved his number, pleased, and sent him a contact request. Ethan's face had turned cold. So I forgot you at the hospital. Big deal. I bought you a gift to make up for it. What more do you want? I work my ass off all day, and you can't even be nice to me when I get home? You just gotta give me attitude? And what's that supposed to mean, wrong size? What are you implying? You're almost 30, stop being so high maintenance. It's pathetic. Did he forget he was several years older than me? A grown man who can't keep it in his pants. Now that's pathetic. Whatever you say. I messaged the attorney to ask if I could come by the firm right now to talk things through. He said yes. And he sent me a photo. My eyes went wide. I stood up, heart racing, grabbed my bag, and headed for the door. He caught the strap of my bag. It's late. Where are you going? I was surprised. Every other time we fought, he'd scream at me to get out. He'd shove a few clothes in a suitcase and throw me and the bag out the door, tell me to go cry somewhere else and die for all he cared. What was with him today? I didn't bother answering. I wrenched my bag free and said offhandedly, Luna wants to hang out. He stood there for a minute, trying to place who Luna was. Then he stared, stunned, as the elevator doors slid shut. James and Luna Hale were waiting for me outside the law firm. The second she saw me, Luna threw her arms around me, grinning. You finally came to your senses and left that toxic jerk. Luna used to be my best friend. But when I started dating Ethan, he hated how much time she spent with me. He threatened to break up with me if I didn't cut her off. I was such a love-struck fool back then. I actually listened to him. I never thought we'd reunite like this, all these years later. We sat down at a restaurant. Ethan called over and over. I didn't answer. My phone sat on the table, lighting up and dimming again and again. Luna poured me a glass of my favorite sparkling sangria. You're really doing this? I always told you, girls before guys, always. I nodded and walked James through everything for the divorce. Luna chimed in with ideas the whole time, ranting about what a piece of work Ethan was. Once we'd gone over the basics, she dragged me out to a karaoke lounge. It was the first time I'd felt this loose in years. I posted about it on Instagram. Ethan couldn't get through to me, so he just liked the post. I didn't get home until the wee hours of the morning. There was a bowl of hangover recovery broth on the table, Brussels sprouts soup, the thing I hated most. I'd told Ethan 100 times that the smell made my stomach turn. But he always laughed and said only an idiot wouldn't love something so good for you. He'd even set a bowl right in front of me and make me drink it. I'd force it down to not ruin his mood, then spend days feeling sick, the taste stuck in my mouth. This time, I dumped the whole pot, soup and all, into the trash chute downstairs. The nauseating smell finally faded. The master bedroom door was locked. I didn't beg him to open it like I used to. I just grabbed a blanket and slept in the guest room. Ethan had been leaving early and coming home late every day lately. For 2 weeks, we'd been stuck in a one-sided silent treatment from him. Luna was worried I'd be upset, so she invited me out. I was at the karaoke lounge, looking for our private room. As I walked past another room, someone grabbed my wrist. Ethan stood over me, a smirk on his face. It's just a company dinner. Did you really follow me here? I'm not here for you. Before I could finish, the other executives in the room spotted me. Ethan pulled me inside anyway. Sophie acted like she owned the place, slipping her arm through Ethan's with a smile. Hey, Claire. It's great you're here, but everyone here's pretty close. Hope you don't feel out of place. Ethan subtly pulled his arm away and tugged me further in. She's met everyone before. She'll be fine. Sophie's face tightened for a second. He had me sit right next to him, passing me snacks, acting all attentive. I humored him half-heartedly, my mind elsewhere. I texted Luna to explain what was going on. She said she got it. James had said the same thing. If I wanted a bigger settlement, I needed more evidence. Noticing how distant I was, Ethan frowned. You don't seem like you're having fun. You feeling okay? I'm fine. I took a sip of my drink. Sophie clung to him, pushing to finish the punishment from their drinking game. Everyone in the room looked a little uncomfortable. That's when I found out the punishment was a 30-second makeout. Sophie's lipstick was smudged, and Ethan had the same shade printed on his mouth. It was obvious they'd already started. Someone told Sophie to just drop it. She just blinked at me innocently. It's just a game. We're all adults here. Claire's not the kind of frumpy housewife who'd make a big deal out of it, right? I narrowed my eyes at her. It had been ages since I'd gone to one of his company events. I still remembered the last one I'd been to. I'd sat alone in the corner, totally out of place. I'd only spoken when someone toasted me, politely sipping my drink. Ethan hadn't so much as glanced at me the whole night. He'd been flirting and laughing with the other women there, having the time of his life. I don't hold my alcohol well. I'd waited until the middle of the night. When the buzz hit, my head was pounding. I told him I wanted to go home. That's when he'd spoken to me for the first time all night. Claire. Everyone's having a great time, why you gotta be so dramatic all of a sudden? You're such a buzzkill. Go home by yourself if you wanna leave, you're embarrassing me. Don't ever ask me to bring you out again. Drunk, he'd yelled at me in front of everyone and shoved me out the door. I passed out on the sidewalk, and a kind stranger had to take me to the hospital. The next day he brought me an iced caramel latte, and just like that, I'd forgiven him. I remembered those other girls doing the exact same thing back then. Flirting with someone else's husband right in front of his legal wife. Then calling the wife jealous and petty for it. I must have looked angry. Ethan stood up, his voice tight. It's just a game. Manager Lewis stepped in to smooth things over. Ms. Reed, Ms. Bennett's here now. She doesn't know our company culture, we don't want her getting the wrong idea about Mr. Carter. So their company culture is just sleeping around with your coworkers, I thought. But I just smiled and said it was fine, they should keep playing. Don't mind me. Everyone froze, shocked. They all knew I used to be a total simp for Ethan. I'd stormed into the office before over Sophie. Once, when I couldn't find him, I'd even posted a video in the company Slack channel, on my knees begging him to come home, slapping myself and saying I was wrong to doubt them. I'd hit my own face over and over, sobbing that I'd been petty and wrong to suspect anything. My reaction now probably shocked them more than that video ever did. Ethan and Sophie stood across from me. I watched them lean in, their matching rings glinting side by side. I calmly pulled out my phone and took a photo. Those were marital assets, after all. I sent the photo straight to James. Ethan realized what I'd done and ripped the ring off his finger immediately, leaving nothing but a faint tan line behind. Sophie curled her fingers to her chest, putting on a guilty act. Claire, you're not misreading things between Ethan and me again, are you? I typed out a message to James, explaining how much the rings were worth. Once he confirmed that one-of-a-kind pieces could be traced back to the buyer, I locked my phone. I lifted my eyes to meet Ethan's panicked gaze. What I said next turned every face in the room stone cold. You bought the rings. Might as well just get married right here, right? You didn't finish that makeout earlier, right? Go ahead. Consider me your witness. And you. Manager Lewis, right? Thanks for the heads up. I never would have guessed your whole company culture is just hooking up with your coworkers if you hadn't said so. I set the free gift ring Ethan had given me on the table. I didn't want it, but he'd slipped it in my bag somehow. I'd found it that morning when I left for work. Consider it my wedding gift. It matches your set perfectly. You're welcome. With every word I said, Ethan's face got darker and darker. I turned and walked out of the room. Behind me, Sophie clung to Ethan's arm, sniffling. Ethan, how could she say that about us in front of everyone? By the time he shook her off and ran after me, I was already gone. I found Luna in our room. She jumped up right away and grabbed my arm. That jerk didn't hurt you, did he? I shook my head, and she pulled me into singing along to Where Have All the Good Guys Gone? Ethan kept calling. I didn't answer. He texted over and over, saying he wanted to explain. He said it wasn't safe for a girl to be out alone, that he'd come pick me up soon. I almost laughed. He hadn't cared about my safety when he left me alone in the middle of the woods. Why the act now? But something about the words soon pricked at me, old habit. I picked up. He spoke right away, urgent. Claire, I can explain everything. As he talked, I could hear Sophie crying in the background. Of course. Figures. Don't bother. Just take care of your baby, Sophie. His breath hitched. I hung up. I knew exactly what that felt like, half an explanation, leaving you hanging and driving you crazy. I'd been there enough times. He texted again, trying to explain. I blocked his number without a second thought. When the night ended, Luna begged me to crash at her place. I couldn't say no, so I went home with her. In the middle of the night, the alcohol hit us both. We talked about everything we'd been through all these years, crying and laughing while we hugged. The next day after work, Ethan was waiting outside my office building, which was totally out of character. The second he saw me, he walked over with a bouquet of flowers. He explained that Sophie had gotten way too drunk the night before, and he couldn't get away. That's how I found out he'd never even planned to come pick me up. The sidewalk was packed with people leaving work. More and more of my coworkers were glancing our way. I took the roses and dropped them straight in the trash can. I'm allergic to pollen. He stared at me, stunned, then hurried to open the passenger door for me. He'd sprayed heavy jasmine perfume all over the car. A clumsy attempt to cover up another, unmistakable smell. Something wrong? He asked, his voice tight. I didn't answer. I just stared at the corner of the passenger seat. A pair of black stockings, torn to shreds, was crumpled there. I sat down in the back seat instead. Ethan went pale. He kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror the whole drive. His staring got on my nerves. Eyes on the road. If you can't drive, let me out. I'll get an Uber. Claire, about last night, I can explain. She came with me to pick out your ring. The salesperson must have mixed up the real one with the free gift by accident. And the stockings? She ripped M when she was drunk last night. It's not what you think. I frowned, annoyed. Got it. He stopped rambling and slammed on the brakes out of nowhere. I lurched forward and slammed my forehead into the back of the front seat. He twisted around in his seat to stare at me. Why? You've changed so much lately. You used to get jealous just 'cause I talked to her. Now you see all this and you don't even react. Why? I rubbed my forehead and glared at him. Ethan, are you insane? What did you say? He'd said those exact words to me 100 times. Now they were coming out of my mouth. He froze, caught off guard. I threw the door open and got out. I hailed a cab and took off. Before I left my voice recorder in his car. I'd just gotten out of the shower when Ethan walked in the door. He looked stormy, angry. He set a stack of takeout containers on the table. Then he went to the kitchen and started making that Brussels sprouts soup I hated. He pulled out a chair for me, all attentive. The table was loaded with a spicy ceviche platter. I'd never liked raw food like that. But Ethan and Sophie loved it. Every time we went out, I'd just go along with what they wanted. It made me want to throw up, but I'd force myself to eat it anyway. I didn't want to give them an excuse to call me ungrateful, or say I wasn't fit for polite company, that I only liked cheap, boring food. Ethan was always comparing me to her. I'd spend hours learning new recipes, cooking dinner all afternoon. And it never measured up to Sophie's plain boiled shrimp. He'd say frumpy housewives are just frumpy housewives. Then tell me I should be more like her. He peeled the ceviche shrimp for me and dropped them in my bowl. I'd only ever seen him do that for Sophie before. Every time I asked him to peel one for me, he'd tell me to stop being so high maintenance for my age, that if I didn't want to peel I could just go hungry. He peeled a whole bowl full. I just smiled coldly and threw the whole bowl at him. The briny, orange-brown sauce splattered all over his shirt. He roared with rage, raising his hand like he'd hit me before dropping it back down. His eyes were wild. "Claire, you've lost your damn mind. You were being a smartass back at the lounge, and now I've swallowed my pride to make it up to you. What more do you want? If you keep acting like this, we're getting a divorce." He glared at me, furious. When I heard that, I paused for half a second, then picked up the pot of Brussels sprouts soup and poured it right over his head. All those years of holding it in came spilling out at once. I smiled at him. "Fine. Let's get divorced." He stared at me, stunned. That was the second time I'd said it. He snapped out of it fast and spat out, "You're impossible." Then he turned and stormed out. I didn't care. I went straight to bed. I didn't hear him come in until the middle of the night. Ethan whispered my name from the side of the bed. I stayed still. He sighed in relief, then talked into his phone as he walked away. "Stay right there. I'm on my way." I didn't sit up until I heard the front door click shut. I took a screenshot of Sophie's latest Instagram post, same as always. For 2 whole weeks, Ethan played the perfect husband. One morning I woke up and found him making breakfast. He set 2 sandwiches and glasses of milk on the table, trying to butter me up. He'd even cleaned up the mess from the night before, like he'd lowered himself to do housework. "Hey, honey. You're up. Come eat." I stayed up all night thinking about it. I was wrong. I didn't watch how I acted around my assistant, and I made you doubt things. I promise I'll keep my distance from now on. Can we just go back to how things used to be? I didn't say anything. I fried myself 2 eggs, ate 'em, and headed out. He followed me out, offering to drive me to work. I didn't say no. He was thrilled. He talked non-stop the whole drive. I humored him, annoyed, gripping the voice recorder in my bag tight. I waited until his car drove away. Then I took a cab straight to the law firm. The second I pressed play, Sophie's seductive voice filled the room. "Ethan baby, you love it when I wear this, don't you? But I have a wife. She can have the wife title. I just want you. Is that too much to ask?" Her voice wavered, like she was about to cry. Ethan cursed under his breath, and then came the sounds of fabric tearing, of things you don't say out loud. Through it all, Sophie begged Ethan not to leave her, gushing about how good he was to her. Luna was so mad she wanted to go confront them herself. James stayed calm, walking me through our next steps. Right before the end of the workday, Ethan texted me an address. Said he had a surprise for me. Funny. I had a surprise for him too. Luna and James were worried he'd act out of desperation, so they offered to come with me. We got to the revolving restaurant. And everyone from Ethan's company was there. He'd rented out the whole lobby, decorated like a fancy wedding venue. Ethan stood at the front of the stage in a suit, gazing at me like I was the only woman in the world. He picked up the mic, voice soft and sincere. "Claire, when we first started out together, I promised you a big wedding. A custom diamond ring, just for you. That I'd introduce you to everyone we knew, make it official. I lost my damn mind for a while. It took me this long to realize how badly I messed up. Now I'm making it up to you. The ring's here, all our friends are here. I want to promise you everything, right in front of all of them." I stared at him, speechless. This was ridiculous. In the crowd, Sophie stared daggers at me, tears in her eyes. I smiled and walked toward him, step by step. I looked at the expensive ring in his hand. He got down on one knee, reaching for my hand, and that's when I struck. I pulled the divorce papers out of my bag and threw them right in his face. Then I grabbed the mic, turned to the crowd, and hit play on the recorder. "Ethan, you're wasting your talent. You should have been an actor." Ethan and Sophie went white as sheets. The whole room burst into whispers when they heard how shameless the two of them were. Ethan's face flushed from white to red. He lunged for the recorder, but James stepped in and blocked him. Sophie ran out crying. When Ethan saw the papers demanding he walk away with zero assets, he turned purple and screamed at me. "Claire, I had you all wrong. I can't believe how greedy you are. Better late than never. You should sign. If you don't, I'll take this to court. And for the record? I've got all the proof I need. You'll lose. And don't forget, I'm in every single one of your family group chats." His hand shook as he pointed at me, but in the end, he signed the papers. When it came time to split the assets, he tried to back out. He kept saying he'd built everything himself, that I didn't deserve any of it. He begged me to get back together, said Sophie had seduced him, that he knew he was wrong and why couldn't I just give him another chance. I tuned him out completely. At his company, the whole surprise stunt had blown up way too big. Ethan and Sophie both got fired. Sophie didn't cling to him like she used to either. She laid low, kept her head down. That is, until I sent her a demand to return all the marital assets Ethan had given her. When she saw I had screenshots of every single transaction, she knew she couldn't run. So she called me and screamed every insult she could think of. I didn't care. All the money she'd taken would be seized and given back to me soon enough. I sold the old house. At Luna's insistence, I bought a new place right across from hers. James had helped make the whole process go so smoothly. He'd even confessed his feelings to me. Said he'd liked me ever since high school, when Luna had brought me over to their house to hang out. He'd never said anything 'cause he knew I had a boyfriend. Now that I was divorced, he asked if I'd give him a chance. I turned him down. But he'd done so much for me. The least I could do was buy him dinner. That night, Luna had to work late. James walked me back to my gated community. And there was Ethan, popping up out of nowhere like a bad ghost. It had been a month. He didn't look like the successful businessman he used to be at all. His suit was a mess, his hair unkempt. He'd lost so much weight I barely recognized him. His eyes were bloodshot. He grabbed my hand. "Claire. We need to talk." I yanked my hand away. "What's there to talk about?" James must have seen how unhinged he looked. He stepped between us, concerned. "I'm her attorney. You can talk to me about whatever you need." Something James said set him off. Without warning, he punched James right in the face. "I've been staking this place out for days. You're the one who turned my wife against me, aren't you? I knew it. We were happy for all those years. She wouldn't have left me if you hadn't put ideas in her head. James didn't take it lying down. He recovered fast and punched him right back. I pulled them apart as hard as I could, then slapped Ethan across the face. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. He stared at me in disbelief. Claire, you hit me? For him? Ethan, get it through your head. We're divorced. He's my friend. You're a stranger to me. Actually, after everything you've done? You're worse than a stranger. You're my enemy. Can you just leave me alone? And let's be real, you destroyed our marriage all by yourself. In fact, I want to know. How do you sleep with Sophie one night, then get on your knees and beg me to take you back the next day? I stepped in front of James, watching Ethan warily. He tried to come at us again, so I called security. The guards held him back, and I helped James inside the gates. Ethan came back a few more times. But I'd talked to security already. They turned him away before he could even get close. Sophie laid low for a while, but then she must have run out of money. She made an account online and crafted a victim persona, a naive young intern tricked and used by a married toxic jerk. Every day, she posted about her experience, teaching other girls how to spot bad guys. And she raked in tons of cash doing it. People online dug up the company she'd worked at, and followed the trail straight to Ethan. Every day, people showed up at his apartment throwing paint, calling themselves justice for scorned women. The internet was flooded with memes and videos making fun of him. I followed all the tea along with everyone else. Every now and then, people would ask me, the legal wife, what he was really like. James told me to stay off the comments, to ignore it all. That is, until Sophie turned the whole thing on me. Ethan found out where Sophie lived somehow. In front of hundreds of thousands of viewers, he stabbed her to death. Sophie was dead. Ethan ran. The internet exploded all over again. Plenty of people from Ethan's old company posted videos, Sophie forcing Ethan to share drinks with her at parties, purposely losing games just so she could get close to him. People online felt played. Even after she died, thousands of angry comments flooded in, calling her every name in the book. I didn't hear about Ethan again until 2 weeks later. The police hadn't been able to track him down. Then one day, he called. Said he wanted to see me one last time. His voice was desperate. I could hear wind howling in the background. Claire, I miss you so much. I don't know how things got this way. But I swear. I never wanted to divorce you. Not really. I felt nothing listening to him. But suddenly, a memory popped into my head. Once, I'd scraped another guy's car. He was some punk kid, wouldn't let me call the cops, wouldn't let me leave. Just kept demanding money. I'd been so scared. I called Ethan, begging for help. What had he said back then? Oh right. Adults solve their own problems. You take responsibility for the things you do. You don't run to someone else to fix your messes. And I don't like stupid people. He'd called my need for him dumping my problems on him. Called me stupid. I said those exact words into the phone. And then I heard a splash, and the distant wail of sirens. They caught Ethan. But he'd been in the water too long. He was brain dead. A vegetable. Sophie's family showed up at the hospital every day, screaming at Ethan's parents. It was a total war. But none of it had anything to do with me anymore. When the dust settled, Luna insisted we go on a trip together. I didn't find out James was coming too until we got to the airport. She stuck her tongue out playfully. Come on, it'd be so sad leaving my brother all alone. Can he come? Please? James and I looked at each other. I saw he was gripping his suitcase tight, nervous. I smiled. Sure. The more the merrier.